Hi guys, and welcome to Fireside Chat with the Johnstons. I'm Danielle Johnston, and I am your host for today's episode. If you are not familiar with Next Generation Gym Owners, definitely head over and join our groups on Facebook, Cheer Gym Owners if you're a gym owner, and All-Star Cheer Coaches and Owners if you coach, or if you're an owner who also loves to coach. Definitely check out those groups. We are always growing. We're always trying to help gym owners get to the point in life where they're loving their gym. And that can be a really hard thing sometimes. Lots of changes in the industry that you often feel like you don't have control over. And they really kind of throw you for a loop sometimes. And we're going to talk about that today. Guys, if you are not familiar with me, my name is Danielle. I own Twister Sports in Warrensburg, Missouri. It is in the middle of the country, about 20,000 people in our town, but I have a fairly large gym. Usually we sit somewhere between 600 and 700 athletes. I have about 155 in our All-Star program for All-Star Cheer and Hip Hop. We have a competitive tumbling program. We have recreational tumbling, cheerleading, ninja, gymnastics, dance, indoor batting cages, birthday parties, private lessons, open gym, everything, and licensed childcare. So, that was a lot to say all at once. But I have been gym owner for 13 years. We'll be getting ready to go into our 14th season pretty soon here, and I am super excited about that. And as we get ready for the new season, you guys might be feeling like there's a whole bunch of stuff up in the air right now. Because as I said, a lot of times our businesses, though we have so much freedom to make choices in our business, we often feel like we're at the mercy of whoever is making the rules and the age grids and, setting the competition schedules and scoring the routines and stuff like that. And so today I'm going to give you my thoughts on the age grid that was released by the Open Championship. Okay, guys, so you may have heard in previous podcasts that my gym exclusively competes with the Open. For, 6 or 7 years, we did compete varsity events. And way back in the day, we competed jam events because I loved some jam fest. My kids had jammy stuffed animals and jammies and jammy blankets and all that stuff. But at one point they were acquired by varsity and there were less and less of those events in our area. And though varsity is still in the Kansas City area today, we have such a fantastic opportunity to compete with IEPs who give the same level of quality of events in this area. My gym typically competes between this year we did several Red Line events. We'll do Rockstar, Celebrity, Revolution. We've done some Bravo events before and some of those other event producers that put on really good events. I will say, and we're going to get into scoring in the next episode, but scoring has been the most consistent across events for me this year. Among my teams, I am a total nerd. I have spreadsheets, I have graphs, I mark down what is a critical issue for us because we haven't gotten the drivers all season and, a whole bunch of stuff like that if you're like an economist, you probably enjoy spreadsheets like the one I have. But the Open was created a few years ago. It's probably actually quite a few years ago at this point. And it was an alternative for those events. It was an alternative to varsity. And so if you're brand new to the cheer industry, send me a message. I will send you this blog that I have all about All-Star Cheer 101 that helps you to understand the difference between, the Open and varsity and where does USASF play a role into all this. So just to kind of put that preface out there, we've competed with the Open for most of the time that they've been around. I think that first year we were still doing Summit and then we took a year off from anything. And then we started going to All-Star Worlds, the All-Star World Championship in their second year. So this will be, I can't remember, maybe year 4 or 5 for us going to the All-Star World Championship. So anytime something is released by the Open, I am always very eager to see what is going to be released because of course it impacts your teams. And when things are released in March, I'm always trying to stay really on top of it because we already kind of have some stuff planned for next season. Right before I went on vacation, if you guys heard the last episode, I was gone for 11 days to the Caribbean. And right before I went on vacation, the Open released its new age grid. So I'm going to give you my thoughts on that. So let me just give a quick recap. There is no longer, for the Open Championship, there's no longer a bottom age for divisions that are mini through, mini, junior. Put your words in order, Danielle. Mini, youth, junior. There is a bottom age on senior of 10. And then down on the tiny for elite, anyway, there was a bottom age. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is because I don't trust my own brain. I go to that chart many, many times at this time of year to kind of look at things for next season. So this is how cheerleading used to be. Like when we opened our gym, and I think our first competition season was 2012, 2013, there were no bottom age groups for anything. These were back in the days of all the zebra print, the biggest bows you could find, the wildest colors of makeup. And although, I suppose you could say that still for some teams are like known for their makeup today, crop tops on every age, right? And so that was kind of the era of cheer that we started learning because it was, our first several seasons were that way. So when it came back out that they were omitting the bottom age, like honestly, I didn't think anything negative toward it, right? Cheerleading worked. It worked back then. And there were some issues, and I'll go through those today, but they weren't issues that you wouldn't see even with a bottom age group. So first one, and like I'm in all the moms groups too. I am a cheer mom, so don't kick me out. I qualify, but I'm in the moms groups too. And to listen to the conversations or to read through the conversations from both coaches and parents, it shows me that there's probably a lack of education and lack of responsibility across the industry. Number one, you guys, age separation alone does not keep children safe. Okay. They talk at the lobby. They talk at competitions. My senior team, they're in the bathrooms and they're talking in the bathrooms where little kids are in the stalls or like washing their hands or whatever. They're in the cubby room and they're talking right alongside my tinies and minis and youth and junior kids, right? They're still going to talk. And so the idea that simply putting them on a team together, does it create more opportunities for them to talk? Absolutely. But does it mean that by having a bottom age group, they're never going to hear conversations that they shouldn't hear? No, they're still going to hear those if the conversations are happening in the gym. It's the coach's job to work alongside the parents and work with the athletes to ensure that the older athletes understand their role in the gym. My daughter understands I do not care if her boyfriend is coming to that competition. I should not see you kiss your boyfriend at a competition ever. You are an athlete in the gym, but you're also a role model for the younger kids. That is just not something we're going to do at competitions. You're there for a purpose, and we need to maintain almost a level of professionalism, right? Like you're there and you need to maintain that level of compartmentalization that is why you are there. This same conversation can happen among your athletes also, right? I don't know what it is. It's usually like the 8th and 9th graders. They're the ones that I tend to see having the most open conversations. You have to remind them sometimes like, hey, but those are probably conversations that, you can have outside of the gym, but we want to make sure that in the gym, we're having conversations that would be appropriate for the younger kids as well. These athletes need to know why it's important that those conversations are happening. And to be honest, I've never had an issue telling an athlete, hey, let's hold that conversation until maybe after practice outside of the gym, because you do have little ears around. And when you were little like that, those weren't conversations I was letting others have around you. We've got to take our time growing up and not get too old too fast or learn things that we shouldn't be learning outside of that. That said, you guys, like you are going to have athletes that have some really challenging backgrounds and they experience things, and you want to create that safe space for them. But that doesn't mean that a 12-year-old who comes from a rough home life is able to fully express with another 12-year-old who maybe comes from a more sheltered home life. It doesn't mean that age alone is keeping them safe. because those two 12-year-olds, I have met 12-year-olds that are treated at home like adults, and I've met 12-year-olds that are treated like children. And so age alone does not keep kids safe. It is a coach's job to manage the conversations that are happening during practice. I hope that you have great front desk people. I hope you have great coaches. I hope you have great parents in your gym who, if they were to hear an inappropriate conversation happening in your lobby, that they are managing that as well, that they're redirecting and they're using positive reinforcement and they're talking to coaches and letting coaches know. I hope that they would be doing that. But I stand firm that on number 1, age alone does not keep kids safe. Number 2, and I kind of already hit on this, it is the coach's job to control practice. So the concept that these athletes are standing around talking for large periods of time about what this girl said to this girl and the fight they got in the bathroom at school. And I have a high schooler, and I've had 4 other of my own children that are in high school. So I know these conversations, but the idea that they're having these long, in-depth conversations during practice is bananas to me. You're not using your practice time effectively if they're having time for those kind of conversations, right? I don't care if you are working with this stunt group over here and everybody else is having to do something else. Hopefully your practices are run effectively enough that they are not standing around talking about what happened at school or between, you and your boyfriend or whatever during practice, right? Keep your athletes moving, keep them focused, keep them redirected. And all of this comes from proper practice planning. If you're walking into practice and you have zero plan, then it's possible that your athletes are going to be sitting around and they have time to have those conversations. But if you're walking in saying, these are the things that we've got to focus on today and we have got to get through this lesson plan, your athletes are going to have more focus, they're going to be more disciplined, and you're going to have better, what I would call in a classroom management, but practice management over what's happening during those practices. All age groups have something that they probably shouldn't be talking about at practice or doing at practice. I made my list here because I've been coaching the little kids this year too. Tinies pick their noses and they shouldn't be doing that at practice. Minis, they're bossy. They're telling each other what to do all the time. Youth kids, they exclude one another and they start forming cliques around that age. Junior kids, they have some middle school and younger high school drama that's happening. Seniors, well, they have all the drama. If you coach seniors, you know that. They're moody and emotional and they have all the drama, right? But here's the thing. They're all doing the things they shouldn't be doing. But if you have a solid practice plan, you're keeping your athletes moving, and you have classroom management or practice management, then none of those things are happening at practice anyway. I'm not saying nothing ever happens. I'm saying it would rarely happen because of that. So even with this year's age group, the way that it was with the bottom age, my U17 team had a 5th grader and a 12th grader on it. And you might be thinking, what do they possibly have in common? Well, they don't have a lot in common. They love cheerleading. That's all they have in common. But when they are there from 7 to 9 p.m. on Wednesday and from 5 to 7 p.m. on Sunday, they don't really have time to talk about anything else. They have time to talk about, oh, your tuck was really high today. Good job. Oh, that was a really good stunt. Good job. They have time to talk about those things. They don't have a lot of time to have conversations about the other things. Now, does my 18-year-old understand her role on the team and that there are younger kids? Absolutely. Does the parent of the 5th grader understand that she is cheering with older middle school and high school kids? Absolutely. So those are conversations that we've had with the older kids. We've had them with the parents and with the younger kids, but we also make sure to bridge that gap by not allowing them a whole heck of a lot of time to have those conversations separately. We've chosen, we don't do a lot of sleepovers or anything, team sleepover specifically on that for that reason, right? So when we're doing a lot of those team bondings, because we had such a broad age group this year, those team bondings are happening a little bit differently. They might be ice cream after practice, or they all went to the pumpkin patch or something like that. That's a little bit more structured because of that gap in age. Whereas my youth 2 has a way smaller gap in age, and they may be able to do more things like a pool party for 3 hours at somebody's house. Guys, the Open, in my opinion, and I'm not nobody pays me to say this, but if they wanted to, they could. But no, they're not paying me to say this. They are not making people less safe. But do you know who is making things less safe? Gyms who don't have control of their environments. Gyms who are reactive and using video cameras instead of having solid 3-person policies of having 2 adults to every child as far as your private lessons. Those are unsafe, not a lack of a bottom age group. Again, this is all my opinion. You might totally disagree with me, and that's okay. That's what makes the industry so great, is that we don't always all agree on everything. But I can tell you, a lot of the same people who I have seen that speak out negatively against that not having that bottom age group are the same people who have asked me how I run my big and little program, where they have like big sister, little sister within the gym, right? So it's not in reality the fact that the 2 age groups cannot communicate effectively. In reality, they can communicate effectively and they can have something in common, and that thing can just be cheerleading, and that's okay. But you have to develop that culture where the older kids understand their role and the younger kids understand their role, and those kids in the middle, even they understand their role. Sometimes they're going to be the babies, sometimes they're going to be the oldest, and it's their responsibility to adapt to the environment. You have to also teach your young coaches what to look for and how to have that classroom management. And that can be a challenging thing. A lot of times when we talk, at conference, we'll teach a class how to coach tinies and minis. And you're talking about that. I'm going to say classroom management, but just understand, guys, that I mean practice management. A lot of times we're talking about how to have that classroom management with tinies and minis, but we should be talking about it just as much with our youth and junior and seniors, because you still have to maintain control of the environment and maintain control of the group. Gyms who don't have control are the ones who are making things unsafe, not the people making the rules. The gyms can still place teams as they see fit. Could you perhaps get backlash from parents because all of a sudden they expect their 7-year-old to be on a junior team? Yeah, you could get backlash from parents, but that's where gyms control the environment. Gyms can say, at this gym, we start junior age at 9 or at 10 or whatever you want to do. At this gym, we don't take seniors until 12 because XYZ. And you lay it out for the parents and you educate them and you help them understand your perspective. There's a book by Grant Cardone called Sell or Be Sold. And it's all about, every single thing in life is either you selling something to somebody else, a concept, could be a product or service, but it's also just a concept, or they're selling something to you. You're wanting people to believe and persuade them into something, or they're persuading you into something. As simple as, where do you want to go out for dinner? Well, I don't know, maybe Mexican. You want to go out to Mexican food? That person just sold you on a concept. And it's, are you going to be sold or are you going to sell them on, well, actually, I'd rather have Chinese. So you have to educate your parents. And if you're choosing to maintain the bottom ages as they've been in the past, you can still do that. You as a gym owner still have that control, and it is your job to sell parents and sell athletes on why that is still the best method, and that it's okay that other gyms are doing things differently. This is how you've chosen to do things. My gym, we decided, so if you think that I'm like the world's advocate for the open, I think something like Prep and Rec Grand Nationals is a cool concept. For my gym, we have chosen not to go that route because we do not travel with our prep teams. Maybe if we lived in Florida, that would be different, but we've chosen not to do that. We actually don't even go to like the big end of season events with our prep teams often. We just allow the last competition of the season to be that fun end of season event for them. And it's what you make of it, right? When you're looking at things, it's how do you sell this to your parents? Do I have parents that would totally love to go to Prep and Rec Grand Nationals? Absolutely. 100%. But it's how I sell it to them. That we travel in our gym once you get to the elite level. This season, guys, I've got a couple of kids, minis, who were elite that are going to go backwards. They're going to go to prep because they want to try some other sports next year, but they don't want to stop cheering. I have sold them on the fact that when you're elite, you will travel, but when you are prep, you will not travel. And so doesn't mean everybody agrees with it, but that's what we've chosen to do in our gym. And it's okay that they see in these groups that prep teams in other parts of the country are willing to travel. That's okay, because it's my job to set that standard of what our gym will be doing. You want to think about retention. So everything here can come down to retention. And when they put this out, Craig, I think I heard it today on a open scoring call. Craig said, the age divisions were set a certain way to allow better retention, to allow for bigger teams. Everything is about retention in this. You want kids to love cheerleading and you want them to come back to cheerleading year after year and season after season. And so what's best for your gym? Is putting a 6-year-old on a junior team going to create good retention? That's something that honestly, we had to figure it out. In 2013, we had to figure out, should this 5-year-old, she's got a tuck, but can she hang on a junior 3? I learned what worked for me and what didn't work for me. For me, that 5-year-old did not love her life being on a junior 3, even though she got to throw her tuck. She struggled to make friends. I'm not saying that to sell you on the fact that you shouldn't put a 5-year-old on a junior team. I'm simply saying we learned our lesson. We did it. It didn't work for us. And we have that wisdom now because it's something we've experienced. But every gym is going to have a different experience. Maybe you have a 7-year-old who is a bit more mature. She's the youngest of a whole bunch of kids with older siblings. I will tell you from having 4 kids, our youngest is far more mature at 14 than our oldest ever was at 14 because she has older siblings. She's growing up with older siblings, right? And so her communication has always had to be up versus when our oldest was 14, his communication always had to be down toward younger siblings. So you are going to have different levels of maturity in those kids. Will I personally probably put a 5-year-old on a junior team? I probably won't. That's the luxury that I have by having 155 kids in an all-star program. And I have a beautiful funnel that brings new kids into my novice and prep and elite programs every year. However, when I started, I had 28 kids and desperately needed another kid with a tuck on that level 3 team. And so we put the 5-year-old on there. And there are times that I think it can help you grow. I think you might sacrifice individual retention of certain athletes, but maybe you are doing it for the greater good so that you can grow certain programs and retain a larger number of other athletes. Guys, it's learning lessons. It's the same as playing with your ratios in your rec classes, right? If I'm in rec tumbling, can I have a 10-to-1 ratio? I don't know. Try it. You'll find out real fast if it's too much. Can I profit with a 4-to-1 ratio? I don't know. Do the math. See if it works for you. It's a learning lesson and every gym is going to have to learn it a little bit differently. So do I have my recommendations of what I will probably do in my gym? Yes. But if I have a kid who would have been 3 months shy of the age bracket in the past, yeah, I would probably put them on that team if I think that's the best suited team for them, right? I had a kid last year that I absolutely would have put her on my senior team, but she was 3 months shy of the age group. And so she had to maintain youth level 2 again as her 3rd year on level 2 last year because that was the stage my program was in. That was the best fit. I didn't have a youth level 3 or a junior level 3 last year. I think there will be exceptions and it makes sense, right? Okay. Some of you are probably out there saying, we are going to see the tiniest flyers getting thrown around like rag dolls. Yeah, probably. I can't believe you don't see it already. You still see it in cheerleading today, right? The issue is not age. I have kids who are super tiny, abnormally small kids who are 12 and 13, right? And I think the concept of a tiny flyer getting thrown around like a rag doll up there and not really knowing how to control their body and what they're doing, it will be something that a gym will have to use as a learning lesson. But don't think for a second that they are going to get those technique and execution points that a well-controlled, well-experienced flyer would get. So the size of the flyer, guys, is really, in my mind, it's totally irrelevant because we have flyers who are taller than all of their bases, and boy, are they good flyers. So I'm not too worried about that, honestly. The idea that, kids are going to go to college and they're not even going to be able to lift kids their own age because they've been lifting all these little tiny kids the whole time. Again, that's going to be on the gym. What is the gym's policy? Is the gym going to allow 5-year-olds on a junior team because they want teeny tiny flyers? Maybe, but they also, and I'm not, I'm saying hypothetically a junior 3 or something, but will they also potentially have the issue that then they have flyers who can't control their bodies, right? Because I do think I've coached a long time, and I do think that click of like body and brain connection sometimes doesn't really come to you until you're about 8 or 9 years old, of like, you tell me what to do and I finally understand how to do it. Like, you're telling me to point my toes, and instead of rotating my hips forward, I'm actually able to rotate them back and point my toes. Sometimes that doesn't happen until the kids are 8 or 9 years old. Putting an athlete on the right team is going to be all about retention. So it's going to be important that you are putting athletes on the proper team, and whether the previous age grid was the right age grid for you, or, you know, you would have ideally finagled it higher as, you know, so that they're closer in age or more broad in age. That is going to be up to the gym owners now. And guys, I sort of love that we're getting less rules. Like, that's just me personally. I do not like a lot of restrictions. I don't like a lot of rules. I understand if you're on a 12U soccer team, you know, usually you're with kids who are 10, 11, and 12. If you're on a 16U volleyball team, usually you're not competing with kids who are 11 and 12. You're usually competing with kids who are 13, 14, 15, 16. That said, it's not a restriction necessarily on a lot of those teams. And so I prefer to create our own standards within our gym rather than be told this is the standard. I'll be real honest. I liked it back in 2014, 2015. I liked less rules. I liked more subjectivity. I understand I am the total like unpopular opinion here, but I liked being surprised at what was going to happen sometimes. I liked it, made me feel like we had more creativity. The routines were more fun to watch. So personally, I like the direction this is going. And I will get into the Open's new scoring and my thoughts on that next week in the episode. I just watched it this morning and I'm filming just a little bit in advance. And so I need a little time to like digest it and really study what that means. But I'm personally excited because I feel like it would allow some of the smaller gyms to actually have higher levels. And the younger ages, I think it's just giving us less restrictions and more opportunities. How you choose to use it is up to you. Regardless, when we think about flyers being thrown around, we need to teach proper progressions, because I can go to a competition. We're going to go in 2 weeks to a competition. If I watch every single division, I absolutely guarantee I will see teeny tiny flyers being tossed around. And it is March, you guys. It is the end of March, but there will be teams there that are not teaching proper progressions. They're not teaching flyers how to stay tight. They're not teaching bases how to dip with their legs and use minimal movement on their feet. They're not teaching bases how to pivot so that they're taking the least amount of steps in their transitions. This is all about technique and execution and making sure your coaches are fully trained in what they need to be trained on, not only on the score sheet, but in how to properly execute the skills that they are trying to execute. With those gyms where you see that happening, you know, a lot of times I imagine that they probably are more concerned about retaining athletes by leveling them up than educating the parents themselves. So there you go. You got my opinion. And I'm sure I've got a lot of people who don't totally agree with me. Gosh, there might be people within Next Gen that don't agree with me. And that's totally okay, you guys. Again, I come back to the fact that I totally support less rules and allow gym owners to make the right decisions. Now, that said, gym owners, I hope you are deeply involved in the decisions that are being made with what will happen in your gym and the restrictions you will put on things if you choose to do that. I hope you are the ones making those decisions and not coaches. Because at the end of the day, there are some poor decisions that can be made that can dramatically affect a team's retention. Whether it's that you restrict it too heavily and they can't level up, or that you make the age group so broad that, you know, there's a gap in maturity that is very evident to the younger kids and the older kids, and there's a divide and cliques and stuff like that. I just think it's important that the owner is making these decisions, because at the end of the day, it's your marketing dollars that are going to have to refill those teams. It's your dollars that are going to have to go in, you know, and your time and investment into having the conversations with the parents when things aren't going well, and to stepping in to help a team when they need your help. So coaches, as much as I just think you guys are great and I know how much value you bring to the gym, I do think it's important that the owners are making these decisions for the gyms. And owners, you have got to be educated enough to do that. unlike a lot of other things where I tell you that I think you need to delegate out a lot of things, I feel pretty firm, and I've really felt this way in cheer for a little while, that it is really hard to be a really phenomenal cheer gym owner if you don't know anything about cheer. So guys, if you are sitting back thinking, okay, I could use some more training on this, or my coaches need more training so that we're making good decisions next year, or I need to figure out how to set those, cultural boundaries in my gym. I need to figure out what I'm going to do and how to educate parents. Like, you guys aren't alone. The whole industry is going to be figuring this out, especially those who compete with the open, and we can do it together. But the good thing is you got a whole bunch of us who have lots of years of, rules and age grids like this that we can kind of give you our experiences and help you to decide what is best for your gym. So if you're thinking, man, that would be great to be able to have that kind of, wisdom and experience in my pocket, you have two great options. The first one is NextGen is hosting our summer conference in June this year in Dallas. It is going to be a phenomenal event. Hands-on coaching spotting. We have very limited space in that session that will be on Friday. CPR, first aid, AED training will also be on Friday. You can meet with Jackrabbit or iClass if you are a software user of either of those two companies. You can sit down and get some technical support or some help, or figure out like, hey, we've kind of been doing this workaround, but is there an option to do it this way? You can do all of that on Friday, and then join us both Saturday and Sunday for huge, we are going to have 6 tracks of sessions so that you can get educated on these things. And if you attend the Open, we are excited to have a representative from the Open who is going to come speak more on the score sheets so that you can get that training and education this summer as well. So if you're interested in that, head to ngconferences.com. If you are like some of my clients who I really enjoy working with, who are just trying to figure out, like, how do I want to run this cheer program in a way that I retain athletes, that I help grow cheer as an industry, that I have happy, well-educated parents in the gym, check out the NextGen Academy. Because gym owners, like, maybe you were a mom who had a kid in cheer and the gym was going to close and you decided to take it over because you couldn't bear to see it close. Like, I actually love moms who open gyms because I think that they're very passionate people. I know there's a stigma in cheer, but I think they're very passionate people who have the right intentions. And so maybe that's you, and you're like, I feel like I need a little bit of education on All-Star, and it goes beyond a 2 or 3 day conference. Check out the NextGen Owners Academy, because we can help educate you not only in All-Star, but how to hire the right coaches, how to train the coaches. And I don't just mean in cheerleading, but in things like classroom management and stuff like that, efficient use of practice time, building a practice plan, okay? How to keep those coaches accountable. A lot of times, if you are a mom who opened a gym, you may have coaches who are way more experienced in cheerleading than you. How do you get in control of that? How do you manage that situation so that those coaches feel confident that you're learning alongside them and that you're making the right decisions for the gym with the knowledge that you have access to? Right? So we can help you with that in the NextGen Owners Academy. So for more information on that, or to book a sales call so that you can just see if this could potentially be a program that would be a good fit for you, head over to nextgenowners.com, click the button that says book a call, and chat with Wes or Justin or Dan and figure out what your next steps are, because changes like this should not be breaking a program. I actually don't believe changes like this will dramatically grow your program unless you have other things in place to do that. This should be something that just allows you to set your own boundaries for your gym, and hopefully you can do that with a little bit of wisdom behind you so that you don't have to do it through trial and error. Okay, guys, thanks for joining me. I look forward to talking to you guys. I've got some studying to do because next week I'm going to give you my thoughts on the Opens score sheet. So with that, you guys, thanks for joining me on this episode of Fireside Chat with the Johnstons. You should be seeing Justin here soon. He's out on a bobcat right now doing something with our horses because it's actually nice weather today. So I will see you on the next episode of Fireside Chat.